Right, hello everyone. This is Adelaide Eternal. We're back again with round 4 of one of our monthly tournaments. So we run 3 different formats, all of the Eternal formats: Legacy, Vintage, and Highlander. And today we're covering Highlander. So it's Sarvin McClinton here, and I'm here with Beckett Wolf.
G'day guys, and just to remind you that if you want to get involved, you can jump on our Facebook page as well. And our tournament's a proxy run, so if you don't have a lot of money but you see a deck list you like, and you can copy it, build your own stuff, and please feel free to come along to these tournaments.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So let's look at this matchup. So we've got one of our familiar players from back in round 2. On the right we have Cameron Bird, and he's on a Reanimator list. And then on the left we have Evan Jones, who's on a very spicy brew here. This is a bug, so that's blue, black, and green. A bug midrange deck.
Yeah, he's just playing the All Stars really. He's got it reminds me a lot of Bug in Legacy. Just got running some really quality cards. All the All Stars. We've got Deathrite Shaman, Delver, Tarmogoyf, Baleful Strix, Snapcaster Mage, True Name. So some really quality threats, and then it's backed up by spells that try to get underneath: Spell Pierce and Spell Snare, Mental Misstep. Try to get underneath, win a bit of a tempo game. I'd call it a tempo mid-range deck.
Sure, sounds good to me. So Cam is on the play. Cameron Bird plays his Flooded Strand and passes, so at least there's no explosive turn 1. But you never know, there could be an end of turn entomb and then followed up by a reanimation spell. It's that scary. Does Evan have any counterspells in his main deck, or is it purely mid-range?
Yeah, no, he's got Spell Pierce, and he's got a lot of hand disruption as well. Him to Turak is going to be an interesting one, because him to Turak, target opponent discards 2 at random. Sometimes it feels so good against a combo deck, but of course,
Yep.
Cameron Bird wants cards in his graveyard.
Absolutely.
So. And here's the Inquisition.
At least he's leading with Inquisition, because, I mean, you wouldn't want to lead with Thoughtseize and see only a big fatty.
Yeah, look, I think Inquisition's good. He's going to take something quality, even if it's just a preordained.
Frantic Search. Whoa, something delicious here. What do we have? We've got Frantic Search.
There we
That's
go.
my number 1.
I'd
That's
be
where I'm
taking
going.
that, I think.
I mean, maybe he really doesn't want to get a duck, but
if he's got a Thoughtseize though, the Thoughtseize can then take the Frantic Search straight after.
I think he just doesn't want to get his spell countered by Swan Song, so take the opportunity now, take the Frantic Search, and then...
I would say Frantic Search is the best card in that deck.
It does everything you want it to do. I mean, the next best card next to it is Collective Brutality. I mean, it doesn't give you the untap and mana, but being able to trigger all 3 modes of that quite consistently when you need to is pretty amazing.
Collective Brutality is a new card. You can target player discards instant or sorcery, so it's like an Inquisition, Duress even, but you can discard cards to trigger multiple effects like neg 2 and a creature, or drain for 2. And it's particularly good in this Reanimate deck because hitting their hand is good to get around their counter spells, but also you get to discard. You don't lose card advantage. You can get rid of a pesky young Pyromancer or something, and you can discard your fatty doing it. I think it's going to be really, really good in Cameron Bird's list, and
absolutely.
I'd like to see it get played today. No black though, so no turn 2 Collective Brutality. It's a Faithless Looting.
That's what he wants to be doing. I mean, Faithless Looting does play second fiddle to our lovely untapped 3 land spell from before, but it's Highlander.
It's a quality second.
It's Highlander. We can't play 4 obs.
And here's the fatty in the bin already.
Followed by, is that a City of Brass?
I think it is just a land. But yeah, turn 3, there's a lot going on for Cameron Bird. No black. I don't think he runs Necromancy either, which is triple black enchantment, similar to Animate Dead, except you can play it instant speed. I like it a lot, but maybe he just doesn't have the black for it.
Maybe not. I think there's definitely some single black spells in there. Oh, his hand is full of counter spells. Did you see that? He had a spell snare and a mental misstep, I think it was, and then 3 other cards. But he he's just playing land and passing, obviously. He's got a very defensive hand. He'd really like to play Tarmogoyf and then protect it, but beggars can't be choosers when you're on a mulligan.
We saw Cameron resolving his big spells against the junk deck, but they were just getting killed, Sav. And,
True.
you know...
Look at that. Oh, here we go. Ready for the blowout?
Oh!
Look at that exchange. So we had Exhume ready to bring the fatty back onto the battlefield, which gets countered by Spell Snare, exactly 2 mana, which gets countered by the Swan Song, which obviously Evan knew was in there, and he had set up the Mental Misstep in his hand ready to counter that. So masterfully played by Evan.
Yeah, really, really well played. Often with Misstep, you just want to jam the first 1 mana spell you've got, and it's probably correct a lot of the time. Cameron had that Faithless Looting, which might be tasty, but I think he played that really well, Evan. And
absolutely. Patience paid off.
When there's a quality spell that you want to misstep and he knew he had it in hand, I think that was really nice.
Absolutely. And he didn't want to duck. He didn't think that allowing his opponent to have, oh, look at that, counterspell. He's got a minor leak in it. He didn't want his opponent to resolve his Exhume. Get a very large 6/6.
You see Ashiok, Tasiga, and a land. I didn't catch the far left one, though. I don't think Ashiok's going to be incredible here because there's not too many...
The density is low, isn't it, of
critters.
But can you imagine that dream scenario? Playing Ashiok and pumping it up as high as you can go and then making a Grizzlebrand. We can live, we can dream. Is Evan going to dream?
Hey, the exile might be relevant. Exiling a few fatties.
Here we go. Evan will continue to dream.
I'd rather
live the big life. Here we go. 1, 2. Now that is something you would definitely want to make off the Ashiok. He would be 2 activations off it. Is that correct? Or 3, including the activating to cast.
It's not like Cameron Bird's going to pressure him anytime soon.
Actually,
but
too.
You know what Cameron Bird's going to do? He's going to untap.
And
he's going to untap with a thing in his graveyard, and that is scary thought. So
when you're the tapped out player and you've used up your free counterspell, aside from is Force of Will in the mid-range list, or it doesn't really fit well, does it? You don't need to protect anything.
No, that's a really good point. Force is a lot better when you're protecting a particular threat, and he's almost playing a value deck, and you don't want to be spending a whole point and 2 cards pitching a quality blue card in a mid-range game to protect something which could be outclassed anyway.
Absolutely. And so Cameron could be trying to be safe around the possibility that his opponent does have Force of Will. But what are Evan's other points if he's... Because I know that he's running the good old Snapcaster, True Name Nemesis, Jace, Dig Through Time type package.
Few interesting ones, and we've seen Dig Through Time a lot in a lot of lists, and it's been good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's at 1 point. Jace as well. What is really interesting is Worldly Tutor in Evan's list, and
so he's going for creatures and lands, or is it just creatures?
Well, the creatures.
Here we go. We've got our tutor resolving. It was a gamble. So for 1 mana, he tutors out a card from his deck and then randomly discards a card. And unfortunately, he's only got 3 cards in his hand. Did he tutor a big fatty? Probably not. He's tutored a reanimation spell. So
what a fun card gamble is.
Look at this.
It really is a gamble, isn't it?
It's the mana leak. That's
fine. Which is good.
That's
to be honest, I want a mana leak in hand.
But that's what he found.
That's what he
searched the reanimation spell, and the 33% chance that it wouldn't worked out well.
I'd take those odds.
Yeah, why not? And now he's got the 6/6 flying, vigilant, life-linking protection from red and green Sphinx of some kind on his battlefield. So this is going to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, the other card Evan's got is Worldly Tutor. But I'm not so sure about it because the quality of his creatures are incredible. And as we said before, he's almost a tempo game.
He doesn't really care about searching out one critical key.
He doesn't have a blowout. No. You know, this is a good card when you're blowing someone out with a Reclamation Sage or, a really big fatty to win the game or combo piece. He doesn't really have that. The top of his list is, Tasiga and Leovold, and, I just don't think the quality of the creatures really condones a Worldly Tutor, especially for 1 point.
Yeah, if he really wanted to, he could always... he really wanted to play that slot. He can play Sylvan Tutor. I believe it's a sorcery speed version of Worldly Tutor, and it's not pointed.
That's right. It's almost like he was searching for a point. I'd rather just a treasure cruise.
Why not? When you're looking at the value plan, he's all in on value.
He does have a Tasiga and a Gurmag Angler and a Dig Through Time. Maybe he's worried about the Delve.
Well, one of which is on the battlefield now. He's got a Tasiga. And...
oh, look at that. Planeswalker taking a Sphinx's Revelation hit. Doesn't even care.
Gaining 6 life off Sphinx of the Steel Wind. Gaining 6 life from drawing a Sphinx of the Steel Wind attack to Ashiok.
I don't think it's too easy to race a 6/6 flying Vigilance Lifelink.
I haven't tried, but I'll take your word for it.
Mind you, there's a lot of ways to deal with it. Putrefy doesn't do it because of the protection from green, which is really interesting. But he's got Dismember.
That would shrink it.
And he's got Disfigure, which is -2/-2. And with a Tasiga out, you could bluff. You could bash into that Tas, and he might be silly enough to block and
it would be hilarious.
Get a Disfigure.
Wait for that Disfigure blowout. So Ashiok got knocked down in its loyalty, so unfortunately we didn't get to see a reanimated Runescar.
There's still time, Sav. I'm waiting for it.
Let's see. So unfortunately he can't just sit back behind Tasiga and generate value. He's got to do something proactive because unfortunately, there's Dig Through Time gone. Alright, as much as we love our Dig Through Time in all of these recent matches, it's exiled, so we're not going to see one this game aside from Evan's deck.
Yeah, well, they're both running it, aren't they?
Wow, there you go. That's a great point.
Jace the Mind Sculptor could get an unsummon here on the Sphinx, and you know the 6 life is relevant, and he's getting a swing in it again. So, to be honest, even with a Jace, I think one swing here kills the Ashiok, and he's on enough life. I think he'd have the time to find another.
Absolutely. Now,
Reanimate.
I think for Evan, the mid-range deck, Ashiok did exactly what he wanted to do. It basically gained him 12 life or so. It just drew 2 attacks from the big fatty. And
but is that where you want to be, Sar?
It's not ideal.
I'd rather not
game
have
one.
the fatty at all.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's game 1. I mean, here he really just gained a bunch of life and allows him to claw back, allows him to keep playing threats and hopefully drawing that Jason Mind Sculptor to bounce it.
I think it was correct not to give the Brainstorm. Evan just needs something to close this game up, something to get back in the game. And
Ashiok doesn't do that.
Ashiok doesn't do it. He's not the threat he's after, so Brainstorm is obviously a much higher quality card.
And Cameron won't be incentivized to attack the Ashiok next turn because he doesn't have that threat of the big 7.
I don't think any of these threats do it. Tarmogoyf, Snapcaster Mage, True Name, Leovold, Click. They're just not up to par. One thing he's got is Baleful Strix.
That would be a lovely draw. Protection from red and green doesn't do it. So drawing the Baleful Strix or drawing the Jason Mind Sculptor are probably his 2 outs. I mean, he also has a Liliana of the Veil. Let's not forget that.
He's also running Gifts Ungiven as another point. And it's almost similar to that Worldly Tutor. It's played in more. It's good in control, but it's played in more a combo sort of deck or Reanimator deck. I'd actually think that Gifts Ungiven is better in Cameron's list because it puts cards in the bin. And,
absolutely.
It's an instant speed card value spell. So
completely agree. So what is it there for? I think maybe Evan might be one of the players that likes to tutor. It seems like he might have a particular game plan that he operates on often, and he likes to use his deck more like a toolbox.
I would say that you should always play how you feel comfortable, and even if that's not the 2 points I would put it in. If he prefers tutoring up specific answers, then by all means, I think he should run it.
Yes.
But here he goes. He's scooped. He's going to have a lot better time post sideboard though, right?
Absolutely. Does he have any spicy tech that he can bring in from the sideboard?
Relic of Progenitus. It's
always nice. He hasn't seen the Oath and he hasn't seen the Show and Tell, so
true.
It might be his go-to card there.
He's got Duress as well, and I think that's coming in. Maelstrom Pulse. It's very similar to that Ashiok. I don't think that's where you want to be. I don't think you want to be in a place where they're even resolving it, because if they resolve Jin Kataxis or Grizzlebrand, it's too late.
Yeah. The one card that just draws my eye in Evan's sideboard, and I love it to bits in this matchup, is Bribery.
Wow.
Can you imagine him casting a bribery? I mean, we said we gushed a little bit over Living the Dream off Ashiok reanimating, or pseudo reanimating something out of his opponent's deck, but Bribery gets you exactly what you want.
That's it. I don't think you'd really be expecting it. And, you know, it can bring him out from anywhere, because Cameron's happy to really resolve pretty much any big threat. But if Evan resolves the Bribery, he's getting the best threat.
Absolutely.
Most likely Grizzlebrand or even Jin-Gitaxias. And they could out-trump Cameron's.
I can see that. And how about that spicy little Shadow of Doubt? I mean, there's quite a bit of tutoring in Cameron's deck.
There is. I like Shadow of Doubt. I don't think it deserves a sideboard space, though. It's a good card, but it's good because it replaces itself. You know, you get to draw a card. It's instant speed, and it's not that bad if you have it in main board and it's not relevant, because at least you get to cycle. As a sideboard card, you know, I think you need something a bit more powerful.
True. I wonder whether during brewing, when Evan looked at brewing this list, he might have looked at some of the junk lists that we play and seen Aven Mind Sensor and thought, I want a slot that does that effect, and Shadow of Doubt does that for the non-white decks.
I think you could move it to main board.
Something a little bit useful.
Stifle was a really good one as well, and Stifle's played in a lot of those legacy Delver lists, which I related it to earlier. So, you know, you could play around with that, play around with just blowing people out with a tempo spell, you know. He's got days in there already, so I think there's an option there.
Yeah. Now, as much as I am not a fan of the non-bow between Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, and all of these handcrafting spells like Brainstorm and Liliana of the Veil, in this matchup, Liliana of the Veil is actually quite good. I mean, sacrificing a creature. I mean, it's better than a card that does nothing.
Look, the issue with it is Cameron gets to decide which card he discards, and you could be giving him a free discard for a fatty. Now, that would feel good if you've got a Relic of Progenitus out, though.
This is true. I'm thinking more from the point of view of, let you reanimate, and I'm going to make you sacrifice that fatty.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what are you reanimating, and maybe that's something for Cameron to think about, because, you know, he struggled against Wes, because Wes in the junk list earlier was able to deal with the threat. Maybe he needs something fatty that also has an ETB.
Very true.
Inkwell Leviathan also has Shroud, which is an option.
Very interesting. Unfortunately, Evan doesn't get that. Oh, here's his sideboard. So he's brought in Grafdigger's Cage. Is that a... What is that?
Hero's Downfall,
yeah.
I saw.
Yeah, so he's got a bit of removal and he's got a bit of anti-graveyard, essentially.
Propaganda, was it?
Hey, Propaganda I would play in against people who don't attack with a single creature.
Yeah.
But maybe he just has a mass of cards he needed to take out, and that's just something that does something.
Jitte is something that I'd be taking out, and it feels bad taking out a point, but I just don't think it's good enough.
Yeah, this is one of those situations, I believe. And when we're looking at Cameron's deck, I know that we saw him in the feature match earlier, and he had an illegible sideboard that we simply could not decipher. But
there's still one card there in that main board I really want him to play, because I want to know what it is.
Yeah, and then we can go, that's what it is. But the rest of Cameron's sideboard, I mean, half of it is counter spells, a variety of very cheap counter spells that go underneath his opponent's big control decks. But that's probably not really what he wants to be doing right now. He has Strunglob Gambit.
Oh, Strunglob Gambit, and that's a classic.
And Boggly What Shall Thou? And yes, there's some indecipherable cards here, but I think we've solved maybe 13.
It's a very good tactical play from Cameron to write it so illegibly that it could be anything.
I think that there's a handful of fatties.
Get to run the 30-card sideboard and then say, no,
that was a sideboard. Okay,
this is Dispel. That's not Dispel. That's this
There
spell.
we go. So yeah, he did bring in the counter spells. That's interesting. Maybe he thinks Evan is on a bug control, not a bug mid-range.
Red Elemental Blast is pretty versatile though.
Kills Jace.
We were
Kills
talking
Dig.
about it in testing, and we found that the counter spell is fine, but the destruction is what's really good because you don't always have it at the right time, but it can kill that Vendilion Click, as you say.
Yeah, that's it. Killing the Click and the Jace, and these are the threats that are in Evan's deck. I do think that Pyroblast
Even
will.
a Strix.
Yeah,
Doesn't feel great,
Toucher.
but when you've got a
Grizzlebrand
flying lifelink, yeah, feels pretty good.
No, that's good. So it will be interesting to see how this one plays out. And Cameron is on the draw, so he can't really do a quick combo out.
Are they
within
both
turn
running
1 and 2.
Collective Brutality?
I believe this is a Collective Brutality mirror match.
And a Dig Through Giant mirror match. I reckon the Brutality is better in Evan's list. Cameron's
So he's got a Reanimate spell, and he's got an Iona. And some semblance of lands and other things. So
the days.
There's the card.
The days on Evan's side. That is going to be good. And I reckon it's a Flooded Stone on the far left, but not much else in terms of lands. I think he wants to keep it because he's hinging on the days.
Yeah, if he has 2 lands and a threat, and that days, that's an absolute snap keep. He can just, because he's on the play, he can go land threat or land second land threat. Oh, here we go. So he's got the Sylvan Tutor, Ashiok. Oh, this is where that Worldly Tutor. This is where that Tutor, I can see it being great against those, one mana tutor up exactly what you need the next turn. But right now, this is horrible. He has to ship the hand back. He'd rather that be a. No, he's keeping it.
He's got Tar Pit.
Creeping Tar Pit. Okay,
so
he has the 2
Flooded
lands.
Strand.
He has the 2 lands. We were worried about him having a single land and Worldly Tutor. Not the best combo there. So Cameron now deciding on what he wants to play. He
muddle the mixture. Tree. Another point I'm not 100% sure on.
Yeah, I think nice in the Time Vault decks. And he just passes. So this is one of those tactics you see in the landless or manaless dredge decks in Legacy. Simply keeping your 7 and passing the turn, just so you can discard your card on the draw.
I like it.
Yeah,
gets around counter spells. He might be worried about a Spell Pierce on a Faithless Looting. Just gets around it.
So he's playing slower and knowing that his deck has the 1 mana counters to back up resolving his, say, Iona naming blue, and suddenly he's in the driver's seat. He might even name black. It could be a variety of different colours in this particular game.
I reckon I would have tapped the Trop there, because if you hit Duress or Inquisition,
absolutely,
you get a lot of information and pretty relevant. So
he's probably playing with that Worldly Tutor in his hand, knowing that he's going to snap it off.
That's a good point.
But
what do you tutor for? Click?
If he has a 3rd land, I would love a Click here.
I think he just drew the Verdant Catacomb, so Click's pretty good.
Yeah, I would love it. I think Click, and then you've got backed up with Days, and it's a good feeling. But here, Cameron is fetching out his land, and I feel like this is the time where he's going to try and cast something like a Reanimate with a Spell Pierce backup. But if he does, it'll be blown out. Get blown out by a, Dispel or... what has he got?
Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, Mental Misstep.
Lots of things. Alright, Lotus
Petal.
Petal.
Also running Gush. Not really relevant when you got the Tar Pit out, but...
No.
Could help him to dig.
Definitely if he tutors for a Click and then... Okay, here we go. So this is Animate Dead off the Lotus Petal. This is where...
If the Days resolves, he's cracked a Lotus Petal for this already.
Absolutely.
I reckon that's pretty strong if he can get
what
this
would
Days.
You do? Float a green and then Days?
I think so.
Float a green? We'll assume he said float a green. I'm sure that he did.
He could have said float a blue.
No, he just went straight to his turn. He would rather draw a random card than... maybe he just decided that he's not going to cast a creature spell there.
You could just say, you know what, I'm going to scare you. Say float a blue. Let you know I got that spell piece.
Absolutely. So,
of course, he couldn't cast a Click anyway. Because he's
bounced,
Days,
so that's probably... He's just playing a bit longer. Doesn't want to snap off the Worldly Tutor just yet, because he knows he'll do it later. Okay, so here we go. This hand is counter, show and tell, muddle the mixture, and he's on 1 land. That's really brutal. So what do you do here? Does he counter it?
No.
He's thinking about it, because he's thinking, what else is my card relevant for? And if I let you get some kind of creature that hoses me, what if he gets...
I mean, it's easy for us to say because we're looking at the list, but knowing that Evan's got Pierce and Snare, and that they're and Thought Sees Duress, and that they're really good against Cameron,
Yes, very true.
I'd hold off. And it's slow. Whatever he's shooting for is going to be slow. So
yeah. I think maybe Cameron here is just going, I'm not going to be efficiently using my mana all this time. Oh, he used a mental misstep. I correct myself. He didn't use a spell pierce. He mental misstepped the Worldly Tutor. I do like that play more.
I like it more. I don't love it either though, for the same reasons. There's a lot of things that you can misstep, and I think it's always going to be relevant.
Very true, especially if he's not going to use his mana.
Do you think he put a Pithing Needle in?
If he's
How
casting
scared are you
Pithing
of
Needle,
Grizzlebrand?
if he's casting Pithing Needle and naming Grizzlebrand, oh, there we go. He had the click in hand anyway. That's a lovely position to be in. Here we go. This is where you go. Leave it.
Yeah, so many people assume that you want to sink something, but if you're mana screwed, then
just leave it.
Leave it. You're going to get 9 damage in with that click before they're doing anything relevant.
What are they going to do to stabilize? They can't really. They have counter spells that do nothing to your click.
That's right.
Let them not draw another land. And there's that reanimation spell. It's stitched together. That's what it is.
Stitched together.
Yes, yeah. I remember it looked like Dance of the Dead, but it's actually stitched together. And on the right is that Collective Brutality?
Could be.
So really, Cameron here is just hoping to draw a Bayou, or actually he wants another Underground Sea, but that can't happen. He wants to get another black source.
He doesn't have green, does he?
No,
he wants. I think he wants blue as well. It switches on the muddle of the mixture, and maybe can hold off the next threat coming up. But
yeah, let's let him top deck a Watery Grave, and then have his hand switched on, and yeah, here we go. Leave it. There we go. Correct play by Evan. There just really doesn't seem to be any incentive to take anything there. And here we go. This is really the way that Cameron gets back in the game. He casts a Careful Study, draws 2 cards, finds 2 more lands, and pitches 2 cards he doesn't need.
Liliana in Evan's hand seems pretty good, you know. I was saying that, but they get to discard a threat. Well, he's already discarded his threats, and whatever he's going to discard there, he would have done. So Liliana +1 is actually pretty relevant.
I can see in this game when you're backing up this threat, he's just going to go to Tempo Town. Population 1, Evan.
Now, do you play another threat, or do you keep up the counter spell?
I don't think there's any reason to play another threat here, unless it's big enough to shorten the clock. Right now he's on the 5-turn clock. If he gives something else that makes that into a 3-turn clock, I would do it. But if it's just something small, I wouldn't do it.
That's really interesting. I reckon the problem with the Lily is you're pitching your own hand as well, and you can often have good hands.
Well, one factor that we hadn't put into the mix here is the fact that off the Careful Study, Cameron did not draw a 2nd or 3rd land.
We'd be looking for that. He's got the Sensei's Divining Top, but I think it's a bit too slow.
That's right. Given that, I think you just keep the click.
Interesting.
Just keep.
You don't want him to top, but he can't top deck another land, and I guess you can have Reanimate, but you got to be pretty lucky.
Oh, here's Ashiok, the do nothing card. If this flips up a creature and he can animate it the next turn or the turn after that, that will be lovely. But it's probably just going to be.
I reckon now you don't play any more threats. You just sit back.
There's the land. So he immediately casts his Reanimation spell. But he can't. The Stitch Together is double black. So he has to cast Exhume. Alright. So this is definitely where holding up the counter spells and the like is good.
Did he have a counter spell to hold up?
Maybe it's just a situation where Evan goes, I know you're so far on the back foot that if I leave mana open to counter, you're still going to run your Reanimation spell straight into my counter because you've got no choice. You just have to do it.
And if he doesn't have the counter, then he might as well play a threat.
Yeah, so I can see that. Now he's shut off from...
But I don't like Liliana. Why wouldn't you play... I don't like Ashiok. Why wouldn't you play Liliana? Because then when you do get the Iona, you can now neg and sacrifice.
I agree. I 100% agree. Casting Liliana there would have been better. However, what Iona has named is really critical here. I assume he's named Black because otherwise Evan just slams a Liliana and says
I'd be
sacrifice.
naming black. Unless he's scared of Jace, I'd be naming black, yeah.
Definitely the colour of the removal spells.
Same logic, Dismember here. Dismember and block with click actually gets you there.
Very true. So naming black, he can't cast Liliana. He's got 4 mana out. I mean, if he had Jace, he'd snap it off. But right now, he can't even attack with his click anymore. That clock is suddenly gone.
Now, what was that card we were talking about in the sideboard, Sav, that Evan's got?
If he gets the 5th land and bribery,
coming up to the 5th land here, so bribery,
it's real.
Bribery gets him out of it.
So let's see what he's casting. Oh, he's animating and he's going unblockable. That does actually. This is actually a good point. We were talking about whether or not he can speed the clock up, and we had neglected to realise that the 4th land and activates Creep and Tar Pit.
But the Ashiok doesn't add damage.
No.
That's the problem with the Ashiok, is if it was a true name Nemesis or just even a Goyf, just some kind of random threat.
Very true. And here comes Collective Brutality. He's deciding whether or not he's going to discard cards, and I assume he'll probably give -2/-2 to Vendilion Click and force Evan to discard a card. But he'd probably also want to gain a little bit of life if he has spare cards to discard. So discarding Reanimate here.
I don't love it.
Are there just no more cards in the graveyard, and he thinks he's not going to actually need to cast it now?
Reanimate does drain you life equal to the CMC, so if he's reanimating something really good, he is losing a lot of life, and with that Tar Pit.
Very true. So
he's surely named black, because otherwise Shrike Maw would be coming down.
Absolutely.
And it's good. We got Eternal Witness switched on.
So Brutality hits nothing.
It's nothing. It has to be Infernal Sorcery.
Now Cameron knows he's in the clear. What can Evan do? He can cast Eternal Witness and return something. That's essentially his game plan here. But Iona is going to make short work of the game, attacking 3 times here. It's 7/7, isn't it?
Eternal Witness Preordain. It's something.
Yeah, it's better than nothing, given that he could engineer a 5th turn, a turn after this one, which will allow him to cast something nasty.
I wouldn't mind preordaining, seeing a 5th land and a bribery.
Hey, let's hope.
Man can dream. It looks like Sylvan Library.
That's really not good right now. It's going to give him one activation.
Turn or two too slow. If
yeah.
it was, because now the clock's on him. And the other thing is, the Iona chose to swing at Evan. I think he was considering swinging at the Ashiok, and he said, you know what, no, 3 turns and you're dead. And I think that's correct. But if he had hit that Ashiok, that Sylvan Library would be looking a lot better.
Absolutely. So now I think he's priced into the play of Eternal Witness Preordain, and let's hope that pans out for him, because otherwise that Iona is going to make swift work of him.
Yeah, Iona's a quick clock. Beyond the colour screw, that's a 3-turn clock.
Absolutely.
And often it's a 2-turn clock when they fetch shocked a lot.
Ashiok is activating here, and it's not hitting anything. From memory, I haven't seen him hit any creatures at all.
A Planeswalker that's been out for 3 turns, you want it to start doing something real.
Yeah.
And if it ever gets out of hand, the Iona can just bash.
Yeah. So Ashiok not really pulling its weight in the combo deck. As much as we wanted to live the dream, it's not panning out very well, especially when Evan was in the driver's seat with a click and a Tar Pit and an Ashiok. It just didn't work out.
I think that Liliana of the Veil, playing Ashiok over Liliana was pretty critical. It'd be a really different story, because now he just can't cast it because Iona's named Black.
Very frustrating. He really needs to find his Jason Mind Sculptor bounce and get back into the driver's seat. But as it stands, his number of outs are very limited. So I'm really thinking it's Eternal Witness Preordain here.
Nothing wrong with that. Eternal Witness Preordain, it sets you up for a quality turn, and he's got the outs. He can do it. He can find the Jace. He can find a Putrefy doesn't do it, but he can find a Jace, and even something like a Dig Through Time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think here, there's times where you look at a play and you say in the abstract, I really hate doing that. The number of times you've done an Eternal Witness return a fetch land, it doesn't feel great when it could be doing so many more powerful things. But at the time, it's absolutely the right play. It's what
I
you
totally
need to
agree
do.
with that. I never feel bad about doing a turn 3. It's essentially Borderlands Ranger, but you know, tapping your mana, especially in a maybe less this, but mid-range kind of game, and just curving out is pretty relevant. I don't like the Sylvan Library there. I prefer Eternal Witness Preordain.
Yeah, it's essentially is Sylvan Library essentially not Eternal Witness Preordain here?
I suppose
it's essentially possibly better in that he could just pay 4 to draw the extra card, but Preordain binning 2 of them to the bottom of your library and then drawing another brand new card after the Preordain the following turn.
I think if you're looking for something specific, you want the Preordain, and I think he is looking for something specific. He doesn't have Strix, he doesn't have Dismember, he doesn't have Putrefy. I think he wants to dig for high quality dig, like Dig Through Time or Gifts Ungiven, or he needs that key spell like Jace.
So here's the critical moment. He's looking at the top 3. He really wants to see land bribery and pay 4 life for it and hope that's not a fetch land. But if that was there, he would make that decision and snap it off immediately. So it's clearly he's really in the tank. It means those 3 cards are probably either very, very bad or it's very hard to play them. Very complicated turn here because this is the critical one. This is the make or break.
Can we see what does it look like? Sensei's Divining top
like
lands. I see Underground Sea. I think it might be top and another land, but I'm not 100% sure.
Is this where you... Oh, and the other land I think is a fetch land, so you can't even pay 4 life and take the top and the fetch and activate the fetch, because it will put him to 0. So he might just have to take the top, leave the other 2, or take the top, take one of the other cards, go to 1.
And that Ashiok was out for 4 turns and did not a single thing.
It's frustrating when you have a powerful planeswalker, or so-called powerful planeswalker on the battlefield, and it doesn't do anything. It's essentially a null rod of planeswalkers right now. It does nothing.
Null rod would be better.
All it does is a handshake, I'm afraid. Yes, it turns on the Sensei's Divining top. Well, that was very interesting. It was good to see how the very first decision that Cameron made in the game was to not play a land and simply discard Iona to hand size, and it won him the game.
Iona came out and Iona stopped it. The naming black was really relevant.
So, interesting match. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully we'll see you soon in round 5, our final round for the day.
See you guys.